Hello, my name is Jane. I'm one of the workers on the Listen Up project here at Wild. We're here to talk to you today around evaluation and feedback of the Listen Up project.
Hi, my name's Christy and I'm a P worker at Wild.
I'm Katie and I'm a worker at Wild as well on the Listen Up project.
So we would like to acknowledge the Turrbal and Meowgaroo people of Meanjin. They're the traditional owners of the land in which we are meeting today. We would like to pay respects to elders past and present and acknowledge that it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So what did we do? So in terms of getting feedback, there was lots of different ways experts could give feedback in the Listen Up project. So the first way is that they could literally let us know what they liked or disliked during the group. So we tried to make everyone feel really comfortable so they could tell us if they didn't like something during the group.
Yeah.
So noticing people's body language. So Christy, this is why often you were very good at this, Christy. Often if Katie and I were running a certain activity, Christy's job in the groups was to support the experts, but also to be watching to see if anyone felt uncomfortable or bored.
Yes, and I've watched their body language.
Yeah, because the body language is a really good way to pick up and that you might need to check in with someone around how they're feeling.
Yes.
We also called the experts regularly and asked them lots of questions. So this is called a semi-structured interview. And the questions were about what they liked about the groups, what they didn't like, what their thoughts are around what can stop violence against women who have intellectual disability. We also did semi-structured interviews with peer workers. So we called Christy and we asked her some questions like what you're liking about your job and what needs to be better.
Yeah.
So in the groups, one thing that we noticed is that sometimes it's hard for people to feel comfortable to give feedback. So we tried to practice that skill. So practice giving feedback. This became really important, and we would do this in nearly all of the groups. So one of them was the name the things that you don't like game. That was we did a likes and dislikes snap. Do you remember that one, Christy?
Yes.
So that was where we literally would put down, the two people would put down different pictures and they would agree or disagree on things that they liked or disliked. So this was a really fun way for people to practice saying that they dislike something, because it can be hard.
Yes, it can be.
We also had feedback forms. So when would we do these, Christy?
I usually do the feedback forms because I'm the only one that likes doing them. and the reason I do them because I actually explain to them why we do the feedback forms, because it's very hard to put down what you didn't like in the group for feedback.
Yeah.
So if I give them the form, I actually explain it to them why we're doing it and why we need to know so we can make it better for the next group, or next time you come to the group we can work on it and work something out and make it better. And I like tell them, I give them a sample, like I tell them I had trouble filling it out because I didn't know what to put down, but once I put it down and realized the problem got fixed, and then I start doing it myself.
Yeah, that's right.
So the feedback forms, like you're saying, you're a big fan of these, Christy.
Yes.
So we explained to participants that it's okay to say if they didn't like something. In fact, we really want to know so we can make the workshop better next time, which is what you were just talking about, Christy, I think.
Yeah.
And we found it useful to ask participants to name their least favorite thing about the workshop rather than what you didn't like. Why is it easier to say what's your least favorite thing instead of what you don't like, Christy?
It's easier to put it down that way. We'll Ralph it just so we know what you didn't really like, so we can try and do something else and work something else out and change that to make it better for on the next group.
Yeah. And we found that when previously at Wild, when we've said, what didn't you like? Nobody ever filled it out.
No, no one did.
But if you ask what's your least favorite thing, so it's still something that you might have thought was okay, it actually meant that people were more likely to fill it out because I think the language was less harsh.
Yeah.
And as we spoke about in a lot of the other trainings that people sometimes really struggle to name something they don't like or to be critical of an experience.
I think this change in the question was really helpful. It's when we sort of started to get some responses around people what they didn't like, and so we could change that.
Yes.
So participants might need to support to complete the form. So it was important to ask whether they did or didn't. Because some people also got offended at the idea that they had to have support. I know, Christy, you often go around and help people fill it out as well.
Yeah.
And feedback forms are in easy English with pictures, which we'll show in a moment. Oh, spelling error. And feedback forms were short. So we're not looking for feedback around too many ideas. We found that if you ask too many questions, it would just be half completed. So this is an example of the first question we asked. So we've got the little faces there. Why are the pictures important, Christy?
Because they're very important, and we used to have the different kind of feedback forms, but we all like these ones, and we all fill it out more on these ones because these the best ones to help us.
Yeah. So this is really important for people who maybe aren't very good at reading or writing. So there's a visual so they don't have to rely on the words. And then they're the two questions we afterwards. So what was your favorite thing about today? The next question is, did you feel like you had a chance to have your say? So making sure we know whether people felt they were able to contribute. And then the didn't like question after that.
So next we're going to talk about some important things to remember. So making people feel comfortable to give their feedback is really important. Okay. What do you reckon, Christy?
Yes, it's really important. If they don't feel comfortable doing the feedback form, but if you explain to them why we're doing it, and you can give them like a sample, like it happened to you and how you did it, it might make them feel better and feel comfortable to do it.
Yep. So I think the other things that we found really helpful was being really excited when someone did feel comfortable to say something critical or something that they didn't like. So to make sure that person felt that this was really valuable, and we felt we were thankful that we could change things now and we could make this better. So encouraging people to continue to do this so we can make it better in the future. So role modeling giving feedback. So we would often talk about this in the group, wouldn't we? About how it's a really important thing to give feedback, and we all have a right to give our feedback. So it's around creating that safety and making people feel comfortable, as Christy was talking about, but then role modeling that as well.
Or us naming things we didn't like, you know, having lunch and saying, I really didn't like that cheese. It didn't taste very nice for me.
Yep. So building relationships is also really important to make people feel comfortable to give feedback. Hey, Christy.
Yes.
So, and also letting people know it's okay to give critical feedback. So this sort of permission giving. Some people might be a bit afraid to give critical feedback, as they might be worried about what would happen if they said that they didn't like the group, or they said that they didn't like talking about this thing. So letting people know it's absolutely okay and it's really welcomed.
Or they're probably too scared to write it down too because they think it's silly when it's not.
Yeah. So it's our job to be understandable. So some people might have trouble with reading and writing and might find doing the feedback forms a little bit tricky.
Yes.
So as workers, we try really hard to make sure that we're using easy language and that we're checking for understanding.
Yeah.
The other thing that's important to consider is that easy English can sometimes be tricky because it often means losing the nuance of what you're trying to explain. So I think being really aware of this and making time to go through the forms and the feedback form with peer workers or with people who have lived experience to make sure that the words that you're using are easy to understand, but and you're still, the message that you're trying to communicate is still there.
Yes.
And that people might, and when you're helping people fill out the forms, it's important to think about as well, as a worker, if you're helping that person fill out a form and asking them what they liked about the group, they might feel uncomfortable if you're the one helping them, because they might be worried to say something bad in front of you.
Yes, there half the time there is some people like that. They feel
Yeah.
worried or feel bad to fill in front of you.
Yeah.
Or they can, another way you can tell, they'll say, I don't know what to say.
Yeah. Yep. And so if that person has something critical to say, if you're sitting right there, it might be really difficult. So I think building relationships and really letting people know it's okay might be helpful.
Yes.
So another thing to think about is time. So good feedback processes took a little bit longer. So for example, when we were thinking about our interviews that we were doing, we would first decide on what the content, the questions, and then we would review everything with peer workers.
Yes.
To make sure that the words we were using were easy. We would make the changes, and then we would actually do the interview. So in all of our planning, Christy, with groups and then doing the group, and it would all take a bit of time, wouldn't it?
Yes, it does take a bit of time. And plus, with the feedback forms, if they put something like they didn't like in the group, and next time they come to the group and they notice we changed it, they're going to do it more often because they feel, I feel comfortable filling it out now because they changed it. They took my answers about it.
Yep, absolutely right. And that's right. If you're changing groups because of feedback, this can take a bit longer too because you need to change the group.
Yeah.
So planning for this is really important. So it was really helpful for us to have things in our calendars around what we were doing, when we were working. And I know that was really helpful for you and Alison, Christy, too.
Yes.
To have dates in your calendar around when you were working.
Because my calendar's always full.
But yeah, you're a very busy woman. So what did we learn? So the first one is the importance of building relationships. Why is this important, Christy?
Because it's very important to build relationships. So you get to trust them and they get to trust us. And it's really easy for them to trust us because, like, I'm working like a peer worker to help them out because I got disability. And it's easy for us to talk to each other about it and get to know each other and they know they're not alone.
Yeah. So some people may have felt actually more comfortable giving you feedback, Christy, because of the shared experience that you have.
Yes.
Because of your lived experience. Of,
and I love working with them.
And we also found, as Jane said, that easy English is not actually easy. So reviewing all the feedback forms with peer workers meant they picked up a lot of our errors. So you told us when it didn't make sense a lot.
Yes. When I read it out, when there's not making sense.
The other thing we learned is that it's really, really important to be changing things that we're doing to meet people's needs. So through the whole project, we'd always be changing plans. So if some people found it hard to be on the phone, so for these people, we would always offer a face-to-face interview to make them feel more comfortable. So why is it important for us to be changing things so we can make it easier for people, Christy?
Because it's easier if we meet face to face to talk about it. That way we all know we're on the right level.
Yeah.
And not on the phone, because we can say, we're on the phone, but we're busy doing something else and we don't understand. Then we don't know what to do.
Yeah. So if you get to know someone, you would know that actually phone's not good for that person.
No.
So we would change that.
Yeah.
Another example of that is we tried a whole bunch of different ways for peer workers to give feedback. And we've ended up with a process where at the end of every time we do something, we all give each other feedback, don't we, Christy? How does that work?
We every time we finish doing something like our jobs and we go around, like if there's only two people working or there's three people working, and time we finish, we give each other a feedback what we've done really good and what we could done better.
Yeah, so for each person.
So we're learning ourselves too, what we can do to change.
Yeah, but before arriving at that process, which is working really well at the moment, we tried a whole bunch of different ways that we gave each other feedback, both the peer workers giving us feedback and us giving the peer workers feedback. And it took a long while to find the thing that worked.
Yes.
Thank you very much for listening to our presentation about evaluation.
Thank you. Looking forward to seeing you next time.